Perfect, thank you very much for joining me. Yes, this is MLS Ireland does predictions on YouTube and all that kind of stuff. So if you're new to this, stay tuned. Perfect, thank you very much for joining me. Yes, my name is Sean, and yes, this is MLS Ireland does predictions. If you're new to this, hit that subscribe button. Thank you very much for joining me. The subscribe thing now is at like 229, which is pretty weird, but pretty impressive that people are still subscribing to this. But anyway, I actually done pretty well last week. I think I got one or two, probably the wrong way around. There was a couple of games that kind of disappointed me. Last night, 2 nights, Wednesday night's games, I believe I got a couple good luck right, and then a few kind of interestingly wrong. But anyway, I digress, and I'll carry on anyway. Into the new one. This is week 32, which is pretty mental. I think there's only like 4 weeks left till the playoffs, so amazing. So yep, might as well carry on. Seattle against Sporting Kansas City. Now, Seattle in the last 4 games at home were pretty impressive. They've won their last 3 out of the last 4 at home. They're starting now to come kind of kick on into the season, even though that they drew and lost their last 2 games, which was away from home, and that was against Colorado. But they beat Vancouver and Colorado before that as well, which was pretty impressive. Now they're coming up against the Sporting Kansas City team, who are just basically 1 place below them in 3rd place. Their record away from home at the moment is probably scattered. Their last game was away from home, and that was against Vancouver, and they got beat 2-1, and which was one game I think I got wrong. But anyway, then it was the international break and all that kind of stuff. But I didn't do too bad. I think actually Vancouver probably drew that game. I think I can't remember. But anyway, they're coming up against the Seattle team, who are doing well, but they're not probably. Their games are not overly big goal scoring chances. Well, not goal scoring chances. Goal scoring games. Their last game was 4-1 and 3-0, but other than that, they're scoring a lot of goals. So coming into this one, I went for like a 2-1 win to Seattle, just for the fact that they're at home. They have a good wee record at home, and Sporting Kansas City's away record isn't as good. Well, I'll stick with that. That's my good analysis. The next one is Columbus Crew now against New York Red Bulls. Columbus Crew, funnily enough, now in the last 4 have probably the best home record. Weirdly enough, New York Red Bull have lost 3 out of the last. They've won 3 out of the last 4 away from home, so they're starting to pick up a wee bit of momentum coming into this game. Columbus Crew now, surprisingly, I don't know if they can possibly make the playoffs, but God knows. They drew with Nashville last time, and then they beat Inter 4-0, and then away from home they got beaten by Philadelphia. But you know, their home record is pretty impressive. The last time they actually played New York Red Bull, it was a 2-1 win, but that was again in Columbus. So, but after New York Red Bulls, probably good performance, and probably I know they only won 1-0 I think, but against New York City in the Hudson River Derby for the 3rd, 4th, I can't remember how many they've been played this week or year, this month. But their performance was good. They were more high tempo. They were closing down. So I don't think Columbus Crew will probably get that 2-1 win. I went for like a 1-1, just for the fact is Red Bull are starting now to get their pressing game on. I know it's a wee bit too late into the season, but Columbus Crew are starting now to pick up their form, and both 2 teams are now trying to get into the playoffs. So it's probably going to be a tricky one for each. So I went for like a 1-0. The next one is New York City against DC United. Now, this game will be in the Yankee Stadium because I think the Yankees got put out. I don't know. I can't watch. I don't remember. Don't really watch baseball. But they're coming up against the DC United team, whose away record this season has been poor. Their home record has been pretty impressive, to be fair. But New York City, probably home record isn't probably that great either. And they're starting to kind of slow down, which is pretty alarming at the moment. They're coming up against the DC United team again, who's probably just in the similar kind of form. So I kind of like for a 1-0. I went for like a 1-0 to New York City, just for the fact is DC United don't really have a good away record, and they're starting to slip. The next one is Philadelphia against Nashville. Philadelphia now, funnily enough, are a very good team at home, and they're coming against a very good team who can get a draw. They don't really lose many away from home in Nashville. Philadelphia are starting to score a lot of goals at home. I'm way burpy. Philadelphia, the last home game was a 3-0 win against Columbus Crew, and they beat Atlanta before that. Now they are coming up against a very good Nashville team who are above them. But they've drew a lot of games recently, so that was like Philadelphia. I'll go for like a Philadelphia 2-1 win. Nashville are a very good team, but I think Philadelphia at home are probably a bit better on form and better all-rounder than them at the moment, so I'll go for like a 2-1. The next one is Toronto against Montreal. Now, this one's going to be an interesting one. I know it's a Canada derby. Toronto are second bottom from like 5 points off Cincinnati from bottom. Cincinnati are doing quite poorly. Toronto actually started to come into a bit of form. They are at home. I know they lost their last home game, but before that they were actually doing pretty well. Who did they get beat by again? Come on. Stop telling me. Anyway, so yeah, Toronto actually looking pretty well this season. Looking pretty well now. And they're coming against the Montreal team who drew their last 2 games overall, and that was against Philadelphia and Orlando. Now this is their away again. Their away record isn't all that great. They've only won 1 out of the last 4, whereas Toronto won 3 out of the last 4. So I can actually think it is a derby, but I think these two teams will probably cancel each other out. I'll go for like a 1-1, just for the fact is it is a derby, and these two teams aren't playing all that great. I know Toronto are probably playing a wee bit better, but Montreal still, they have a plan, and I think they're better technically set up to win games. Where about you know what I mean. So I'll go for like a 1-1. I think the two teams are just basically going to cancel each other out. The next one is Chicago Fire against Real Salt Lake. Chicago Fire are starting to slowly move up the standings. They're still not going to make the playoffs, unfortunately, but they beat Cincinnati in a pretty good game. I think that was going to be a draw, I predicted, but it was like a wonder goal at the last 2 minutes. And then their last home game was a 2-0 win against New York City. And now they're coming up against a Real Salt Lake team who I believe are playing quite okay at the moment. Their home record is probably outshining their away record. Their last 2 away defeats were against Austin and Portland, which isn't great. They got beat by Portland 6-1, and they got beat by Austin 2-1, and now they're going to be away to Chicago Fire. So when you kind of think about it, but I think Chicago Fire are capable of scoring goals, but I'm going to go for like a 2-1 win to Real Salt Lake. I just think they're probably a better team. Well, they are a better team, and Chicago Fire. I'll stick with my 2-1. I can't really see too much in this. I haven't really seen much of Real Salt Lake this season because the games never seem to be on TV. The next one is Inter against Cincinnati. Now, Inter finally won it. They were starting to win games, and then they lost basically 5 in a row. They beat Toronto 3-0. Now they're coming against the Cincinnati team who are basically bottom of the league, who have, I think, won a few games away from home. They won 2, I think. 3, but in the last 4 they haven't. So it's probably going to be an easy one. I went for like a 3-1 win. I think Inter, this is probably a game will suit Inter, and they'll probably get a good game out of this one. I'm going to stick with a 3-1. Could be 3-0, but I think Cincinnati are capable of getting the goal. The next one is Minnesota against LAFC. Now, Minnesota, they won 2 nights ago. They won against Philadelphia 3-2, and then they beat Austin the week before that. Now, another home game before that was against Colorado Rapids, where they lost 3-0, but their home record is pretty good, and LAFC won their last away game. That was against Dallas, so take it as you will. I went for like a 1-1. Minnesota are a very good team. They're out at home. I think LAFC have the capabilities of getting a goal, but Minnesota are at home, and they're good at getting a good result over the line, and I think this is going to be one. So a 1-1 on that one. The next one is Colorado against Portland Timbers. Now Portland are starting to get comfy, if that makes any sense. They lost their last 2 games against LA and Galaxy, and Vancouver, but they were doing very well prior to that. And they're coming up against a Colorado Rapids team who are 4th in the league, who I believe have the lowest wages in the league, which is pretty impressive. They drew against Seattle the week before that at home. And the last home game before that was against Austin. They won 3-0. So they're coming against a Portland team who are still basically have their minds in the playoffs, and they know that they're basically making it into the playoffs. So I went for like a Colorado 2-1 win. Colorado they have a strange system going, and it seems to be working for them. Like they're 14 wins and 30, which is half. It's not great to be all in fairness, but they're 4th in the league and they've won half their games. It just shows you the MLS is basically it's hard to predict. So yeah, you just can give me. Yep. So I went for a 2-1 win in that one. Colorado just probably the better team. Portland probably. Again, not really thinking about it. The next one is LA Galaxy against FC Dallas. Dallas won haven't won a game in the last 4. LA Galaxy won their last home game. That was against Portland, as I was saying. Dallas probably looking now to lose their best up and coming player, and they haven't won anything in the last 8 home nor away. I think this was probably going to be an easy one for LA Galaxy. I went for like a 2-0 win in this one. I think LA Galaxy, they need to start clicking again before the playoffs start. I do think they're going to make it into the playoffs, but they really need to get their feet on the ground and start playing properly again. Need Hernandez back scoring. Other than that, I don't think they're capable of winning anything in the MLS Cup this season, so they need to start doing stuff. San Jose Earthquakes against Vancouver. Now, San Jose won their last game. They actually didn't do too bad in the last 8. In the last 6. They drew. They haven't drew anything, but they've won 3 and lost 3. And they beat LAFC, but then they got beat by Seattle. Then they got beaten in Vancouver 3-0. So, Vancouver, I think I was saying that they won last night, a couple of nights ago, against Portland 3-2, and they beat Sporting Kansas City in Vancouver. And then they got beaten by Seattle away from home. So their away record is a bit scattered. I think they've only won the 1 game at home. They've only won the 1 game at home, which is pretty away from home, and they're coming up against the San Jose Earthquakes team who are starting to probably trying to get into things, but I kind of went for a surprising one on this one. I went for like a 2-1 win to Vancouver. They're, like I said, they're a very strange team. These are the kind of games what you would suspect. They were the kind of like the Portland last year, where they would have won games. They would have won games that you suspected them to lose, and this is probably a game where you suspect them to lose, but they'll probably win because they're kind of in the same ballpark as San Jose Earthquakes in form. So I think Vancouver beating Portland, I think they'll probably have a bit of a more uplift. The next one, and the second last one, is Austin against Houston, Texas Derby. Austin at home, basically Houston away, haven't won a game. Austin have won their 2 in their last 4 at home. They're starting to pick up points. They haven't really won many in the last games at home nor away. So coming against the Houston Dynamo team, who are basically 5 points ahead of them, basically, which is weird. Houston's 23rd, Dallas is 24th, and Austin is 25th. So interestingly enough, I went for like a 2-0. I think these 2 teams are probably well matched for each other and not being great. Austin at home probably being less. Well, how can I put it? They're not used to it still. They're kind of still new to this game. So I went for like a 2-0. I think Houston have probably a bit more experience coming into this one. The next one is, and the last one is, Orlando against New England Revolution. Now Orlando now are at home. They're not doing too great. They've won 2 out of the last 4, which is not too bad, but you suspect them to be doing better. They drew against Montreal their last home game, but they beat DC United the time before that. Now they're coming up against the New England team who haven't lost a game in the last 4 anyway, I'm pretty sure of, away from home, which is pretty impressive. Let me just take a proper look at their last ones. So yeah, they beat New York. Away from home they beat Chicago Fire, and they beat Montreal, and they beat DC United. They're actually the last 2 of the last 4 home games, which wasn't pretty good. Orlando started to play up, started doing pretty badly, and then they drew against Montreal, and they beat DC United, and then lost by Montreal, which is, interesting. So they're coming up against a New England team who I suspect are probably going to win this one 3-2. They're just a better team. I do think this game is going to be a lot of goals into it, and the reason why I laughed because I put down 32. But anyway, never mind. So yeah, I'll go for like a 3-2 win for New England, and then basically lifting the Supporters' Shield next week or Wednesday, whenever the next to play. So yep, those are my predictions. Thank you very much for joining me. If you made it this far, hit the subscribe button. I'm on Patreon too if you want to go over there, whatever. So I hope to see you on the next one. Bye now.